What's up, everyone? It's KB, and I love movies. The spooky season continues, and we have a returning guest today. Always good to see him in the chat. Always good to just chat with him in general. You know him, you love him. It's Laren. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, not much, man. Thanks so much for having me back.
Bro,
Spooky season.
you know, this is like the time for us to talk like the nitty gritty.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So we've been having some good conversations so far, and you might hear some in and out. I got my little shadow here with me, but yeah, talking a lot of great movies, and you got a couple here to talk today. So what I
Yeah.
was thinking is kind of doing it like a five takes, but with a little spin on the spooky season. So if you're cool with that, we could go in that direction.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The first thing I wanted to ask, and for this one, you cannot say Army of Darkness because you already gave that previously. So the first question I wanted to bring up was name the horror movie, or in this case, a horror movie that made you fall in love with the genre.
In my house growing up, A Nightmare on Elm Street was played just my entire life. Just the entire time I was alive. And I remember when I was about 4 years old realizing that that was a scary movie and thinking, oh my God, like, this is scary. And I was watching it really late one night when my mom was asleep. And I kind of went back into my room and I was like, I don't want to watch that. Then I realized I knew everything that was going to happen. I knew, he's throwing rocks at the window, and I knew every single line. Screw your pass. And I just realized, hey, this isn't bad. This is just a movie. And so I
Yeah,
think that was kind of my foray into the horror genre, and realizing that they're not really scary. It's just a movie.
yeah. And it's funny, and we talk about this. The reason why I didn't want to limit it to just horror movies for this season is because you can find spooky and creepy in non-horror movies. And if you think about it, the majority of Nightmare on Elm Street is just the spooky factor. You don't really see your slasher. I think they said for more than 7 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, he was
So
barely on screen.
yeah. So it's amazing. They didn't want to keep putting on the makeup and all that stuff. And then, of course, bigger budget once they got to all the sequels, more Freddy, and then more popularity. But the original, it relied on the creepy factor, which I mean, Wes Craven writing and directing, he's one of the masters at that. So that's what to me,
For
that's what
sure.
made it great and made it my favorite in the franchise for all these years.
Oh, mine too, for sure. I do love the makeup in part two, though. Speaking of the makeup,
Hmm.
amazing part two. Other than that, I mean, it's an okay movie, but you know that kind of makes it great.
Yeah. I always think about, especially you get older, you watch it more and more, the pool scene, how terrifying that was with, like you're saying, the makeup job and him running around being like kind of like out there and then, holding up his arms, you're all my children now. Love that scene with the fire
Yeah,
going behind him.
that was crazy, man. I
Yeah.
didn't see that until I was like in my early 20s. I didn't even know that that was a thing. I just saw the first one in New Nightmare for many, many years, and
Oh,
yeah, so very weird.
that,
I think we
but you know
discussed
what?
last.
Some people say you're good with those too.
I think I was. I think I was. I watched three, and there's something that happens at the end of three that crushed my soul, and I didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
and and then I watched four, and I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to watch any more of these. And I've seen
Yeah.
Freddy versus Jason, of
Yeah,
course, but
of course.
I didn't see the remake. And I guess there's like a baby or something
Mm,
in one of them, like the
eh,
Dream Child or something like that. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
I don't know what
eh,
that is, but
yeah.
whatever. I don't need to see that. I don't think. I'm good.
Still my favorite franchise, even though there's some misses in there, but Freddie's an icon, so you can't move
I
away from that
agree.
regardless of, um, the actual movies themselves.
So, as far as this question goes, what about you? What made you fall in love?
Ah, okay. I think I'd have to say it was okay, so I'm in my 50s, so my Saturday night was Love Boat, Fantasy Island. I'm supposed to go to bed at 11 when the news come on, and then I would sneak and stay up because the local channels had, like, the midnight monster movies. So think
Okay.
about, like, all the old Universal movies like Frankenstein and Wolfman and Visible Man and Creature from the Black Lagoon. So those were cool, but then sometimes they'd get a little dark. So now you're starting to look at like Vincent Price, House of Wax, and stuff like that. So Christopher Lee and all those, like vampire horror movies like that from, the 50s and so forth. So I would say it would be a combination of those. No one, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say like House of Wax, which I haven't watched in a
Nice.
long time. I'm sure I would probably have a few triggers and a few scenes if I went back and watched it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I just got
those
that.
midnight movies did it for me, man.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, I got that on DVD because I saw it years ago on television, but I really want to revisit. I found it really cheap on DVD recently, so I'm gonna watch that this month.
Yeah. And I saw that they're re-releasing the Universal Monsters. So I definitely want to pick that up, like all of them in 4K. I think that'd be nice.
Mhm.
All right. Let's move on to the second question. Like I said, this is where we'll kind of circle and hang out for a little bit because you have some good ones. So
Yeah.
name some of your favorite spooky or creepy movies. What do you got for us today?
Somebody recently, I think it was like last October actually, but somebody said your favorite subgenre of horror is werewolves, and I was like, I guess so. I guess it is. I guess you're right. You know me better than I do, and I did want to talk about The Howling.
Nice.
You just rewatched it as well, and I just watched it about 10 minutes ago for the first time in like 4 years, and oh, I gotta tell you, it is so good. It's the same year as An American Werewolf in London,
Yeah.
and people don't realize that, but I mean, completely different, so different from one another. It runs the whole gambit, man. It does everything you'd want
Hmm.
in a werewolf movie, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's got everything. It's got a transformation scene. It's got a couple actually.
Yeah.
The one at the end is like, holy crap! It
Yeah.
goes
I mean,
everywhere. It's got
maybe because they were being made at the same time, there's really no comparing the 2 at that time. So we could do it
yes,
years later, we're talking 40 plus, and I'm sure it looks great on 4K as well, but, you know, you we will do that comparison now because it's like, the American Werewolf in London one is, like, classic, and I always end up saying, "There's no American Werewolf in London, there's no Michael Jackson Thriller, blah, blah, blah," but, you know,
yeah,
that doesn't discount, like you're saying, the transformations and the howling. It's just different makeup artists, different effects, but, it holds its own.
just awesome. I mean, you got silver bullets. You got the whole just like there's like a detective element to it, to where they're trying to figure out what's happening, and there's a serial killer element, and it goes all over the place, and it's amazing. I love it so much. Got to
Yeah.
be
For
one of
some
my
reason,
favorites.
that serial killer element that you mentioned, that was the one that kinda, like, was a little left of center for me, like, why is this woman investigating this guy and how does it tie in? Which, we eventually find out. But,
Yeah.
another Dee Wallace movie, once again, horror queen, but
Yes.
she's in some classics for sure. But
Oh
w
yeah.
what's the one thing in this movie that really stood out to you?
I love the werewolf design. The bipedal. they're tall, they're crazy, they're spindly, but they're powerful. The ears, the fur. I mean, it just you can't get better than that. I like it better than the overall werewolf design of an American Werewolf in London. Even I mean, I think just the eyes, everything about it. I love it so much.
Yeah. For me,
Yeah.
it's the focus on the Lycan mythology. It's
Hmm.
probably one of the movies from that time that really, really focused on it compared to others, where it was just like, this one person and this is happening to me and so forth. But, it's there's always a loner element in a lot of these horror movies. And this was more like this leaned more into the whole mythology behind werewolves and everything like that. So I like that.
And I like how they tie it in because the guy that they're looking for, Eddie Quist, he's an artist, and so he's drawing people. He's drawing werewolves. He's drawing transformations. He's like documenting everything in his art and even the locations, and they use
Mhm.
that to find him. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
By the
excellent.
way, we always try to avoid spoilers, but if we need to, we will throw up the banner and let you know that we are talking spoilers because, we realize there's still people who haven't seen every single horror
Yeah,
movie that's out there. So, if we're gonna get into the spoiler talk, we'll do that. But
nice.
I
Yeah,
think
maybe
we're
in post. Maybe I already spoiled something. I'm not sure,
no,
but
I think you kinda surfed around it good enough. So
okay.
I think that's good. I think that's good.
But oh
What
man.
else you got for us?
Another one I had you watch that I'm not sure a lot of people have seen is I Madman, which had a Scream Factory release from like I don't know, like almost 10 years ago now. I think
Is it
um,
yeah, it's out of print for sure, right?
it is out of print now. I wish they do a 4K. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
That with the slip. I don't even have the slip because I bought it later. Um, but what did you think? You just watch it for the first time?
yeah, yeah, and it
Give
was
me
not easy to find because, like you said, it's not readily, like, available as far as physical media, and nowhere
right.
is, like, really streaming it. I maybe was it on Tubi? It might have been on
Where did you
Tubi.
watch it? Is that where you watched it?
I think so.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure. I'm thinking I did. But anyway, there's a commonality between that and the next movie that you're gonna talk about that I'll
I know.
reserve.
That's why I wanted to do it.
I
That's so
picked up on it.
awesome.
I picked up on it.
That's a great double feature too for anyone that
Yeah,
wants
yeah,
to do that
and we'll come
for
back
sure.
and we'll definitely discuss that again. But, I liked it. I liked it. It gave a story that's, well, we can't say unique, but very uncommon and
Yeah,
intriguing at the same time. So, give a
for
give
sure.
a quick synopsis of what the movie is about, of course, without spoiling it.
Right, right. It's about this girl who works at a bookstore and she comes across this book and she's getting really into it. She's getting really into it. And she's like imagining that it's happening to her and she's imagining that she's the main character in the book and she finishes it and she knows that this author's done like two books and she's going on a quest to find the other book and there's a lot I can't say but she finds it and chaos ensues. It's it's very it's got very pulp novel elements to it, right? It's got a little bit of a detective thing again going on because there is a detective. Her boyfriend's a detective.
Mhm.
And by the way, their relationship and the whole thing, and there's a lot of rain in the movie. There's this guy playing piano across the street
That was
in
odd.
like the opening scene. It's like a piano repair place and he's over there playing piano. I love that
Yeah.
actually because where do you see that?
It's almost like, we talk about diegetic, non-diegetic music, like a score or soundtrack versus music or sounds happening in the movie. And
In the
there
movie.
are certain scenes where he's just playing in the background, and it becomes kinda like the score for what's going on in the movie, and
Mhm.
at least for me, it kinda, like, went subconscious for me because all of a sudden I forgot that the dude was, like, playing piano,
Yes.
and it's in the
Mhm.
background the whole time. So while
Mhm.
she's, like, getting into the book, like you were saying, that becomes kinda like the music for it. That part was
Exactly.
really cool to me. That was
I
cool.
love that. And she, like, opens
So
the window at one point to let the music in,
mhm,
and there's this scene where, like, her boyfriend comes over and he's playing in the background to what they're doing.
mhm.
Just I love it. I love how they set it up, and yeah, I don't know. I what did you think? What did you think of the stop motion? There's a stop motion element to the film as well.
It's always hard with early CGI and especially incorporating stop motion into it. The further we get from its origin, the harder it is to critique, because if we looked at this like
Mhm.
90s, 2000, oh, that was cool. We're looking at it 20 plus years later, a little dated. But
Yeah.
for you have to put things in the context of the time for the time, very innovative because like you said, it's stop motion and it's also the origin of CGI use as well. So it
Mhm.
was kinda like it kinda used CGI, but it also used, like, old school format where they were kinda, like, putting it over the other elements of the film.
They were it was like one thing, it was like a full size puppet they were superimposing in post.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which leads me to the question about the 4K. Were there features on there or, like, telling you about that, like, behind the scenes featurette
Mhm.
stuff?
Well, it's just a Blu-ray, but yes, they did mention that. It's a whole, like, small documentary about it. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Was this a blind buy for you? Just talking
Yes,
about
it
the
was. Yeah, I
Blu-ray
just
thing?
had heard about it, and I was like, "I really wanna see that."
Yeah,
I knew next to nothing about it, and I'm so glad I got it because it's become a staple for me during, like, the spooky season.
yeah. It's it's one that's very uncommon and probably, more people need to check it out, I don't know how they're gonna get their hands on it, but if you can, definitely check it out because it's a good one, and I don't remember the main character's name. I've seen her in a few other things, but,
Oh, yeah. Jenny Wright,
yeah, yeah,
the
and I
actress,
think
yeah.
she still acts, I know that, so
Yeah. I realized while I was watching that she's in, Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark. I was like, "Oh, that's the other thing that I know her from that I've seen
yeah,
a bunch of times," and it took me a minute. I was like, "Oh, yeah."
yeah,
But, yeah, she's great in it. She's smoking hot. I have to say, she's I was like, "Oh my god." I forgot how, risque the movie actually is. I was like, "Wow."
yeah. It has its moments, I'll say that,
Uh-huh. For
but
sure.
well paced. I mean,
Oh,
it's
for
like
sure.
what was it, 90 what? What year was that?
89.
89, so late
89.
'80s, early '90s. You're gonna get
Mhm.
in and out in 95 minutes or right around there,
Yeah.
so that's all
Yep.
you need.
89 minutes too.
Perfect,
So there you
perfect.
go.
Storytelling, in and out. So
Oh,
I
for
love I
sure.
love those kinda movies like that because it doesn't, overstay its welcome. I'll just put it like that.
Definitely not. And if you like interesting main villains, like interesting looks and stuff, like definitely you're gonna want to watch this one because it goes places you're not gonna expect.
I'll say one more thing about it, and this is not the Andrew Lloyd Webber version, but think more of the old version or even the Robert Englund version of Phantom of the Opera. It gave me feelings of that, of Phantom of the Opera and his grotesque face and all that
Hmm.
stuff, you know, and the longing.
Right?
So
Yeah, of course. I haven't seen Robert England's version. I want to see it.
yeah, or just watch, like, the one from the 20s or 30s, kinda along the same story, which is supposed to be
Hmm.
more horror story, less love story, the Broadway musical kinda changed the story for a lot of people. It's kinda like they Disneyfied it, so it's like, "That's not the story." Yes, yes, that's the original story. So, it's a little bit different than what you see on Broadway, folks.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was a good choice because I definitely was not ready for that, and I'd never seen that before, so I always like good first watches. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
you asked me to bring something to the table that, like,
And
you
you
hadn't
did.
seen, so I was like, "I gotta do it."
You did. You did. Good choice.
Yes,
Good
I'm
choice.
glad. Awesome.
Alright.
But yeah, it does tie into John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Mhm.
This is a great Blu-ray release from, I guess, like 5, 6 years ago, I guess.
Mhm. And what's
Um,
this one about?
oh,
For
man.
those that don't
Do
know. I mean, most
do
people
you
know
read
Carpenter.
do you read Sutter Kane? Um, yeah, it's about this guy who, I guess what is his job? He
I was wondering that because it was like, are you like a fraud agent? Like, what do you do?
I Yes, I think that's it, basically. He's seeking out. Yes, that's right. Um, yeah, basically this guy writes novels. He's like a Stephen King type. They even compare him to Stephen King. And what people start his stories start to come to life, right? Is the basic plot.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill plays the main guy, and he takes this editor from the publisher, and they go to investigate this town that doesn't exist, but they find it, and again, chaos ensues. It's crazy. Even before then, he's investigating, and it's got that detective element to it once again.
Which once again, your choices here kinda, like, tie into each other because, like, in The Howling, there's, like, investigative reporters that I
Yes.
mean, they're like a secondary story, but they're a part of the plot. And
Hmm.
they're trying to find out the truth behind the whole
Yeah.
werewolf like in murders, blah blah blah. And you have the same thing here, but the thing that I found so uncommon is you have someone who's really not an investigator to that extent doing
Right.
it.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
had
he's not
seen
really
this one
comfortable
before.
doing.
What's that?
Yes, you said. Yeah, he's not really comfortable doing it. The
Mhm.
Sam Neill character, he's not really like into it at all, but he does it anyway. But how
Yeah.
many? When's the last? Did you see this in the '90s or?
I think I saw it when it first came out, so we're
Nice.
talking, VHS, maybe early
Hmm.
DVD days. I didn't see it in
Yeah.
theaters, I remember that much, but I think I
Hmm.
saw it, like, on VHS, early DVD, so
Yeah. But anyway, they go to this town and they're trying to figure it out. He's the skeptic, right? The whole movie, and everything just falls on his head. It's like
it's like,
he just like
you don't wanna believe, you will believe.
you will when we're done with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not well, maybe this is spoiling, but I wanted to ask you this, so I'm gonna throw up the banner here. For those of you who have not seen the movie, I'm just going to throw it up for a minute here. So feel free to mute until this goes away. But what did you think of the whole he sees you like thing going on, like on the walls and all that? Do you think
There's like
that
a
was King's
painting.
way of saying, I'm controlling this narrative
I mean, he meets him at one point, right? He completely
without
meets
him
him.
knowing it? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think so. I think it's like he's God. He's been in his world the whole time, even before they got to whatever that town was called that I can't think of the name of right now.
Hobzen.
Um, Hobbs in, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, even before they got there, it was like he's controlling everything. Um,
hmm
what did you think?
Yeah. I really think it was a matter of the whole movie is taking place in his head. So that whole thing about him seeing him is basically like his way of explaining to himself why the events that took place happened. So
So you think Sam Neill is just crazy?
yeah, yeah. I don't think the because if you look at some psychotics, they reach a point where they're just like batshit crazy and just laughing like he was in the theater. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just thinking at that point, it was just like his mind just fell apart. So he's doing a lot of flashbacks, a lot of replays, and then you can develop, someone who sees and hears everything in your mind as someone who's controlling your mind and controlling your narrative. So that's how I saw it.
yeah, and it just takes you in circles the entire movie. It never stops. Like even like the old man on the bike
Mhm.
who's like a kid, and then he's an old man, and it's like it just never ends. Even like when he gets out of the mental institution, like you said in the theater, it's it's it just it's like, yeah, you're right. Maybe he's just insane. Maybe none of it happened. It's just the book has
Another
driven him
reason I
mad.
say that is because he was able to do flash forwards with both, the lady Styles, whatever her name was, and
Yeah,
also with, Sam Neill's character, so that also gave me an impression. Usually when you see a flash forward, that means somebody's retelling a story. In this case, retelling a story in his mind. That was the
right.
point where I said, "Oh, yeah, this is a retelling." So, I don't
I
know.
like that. I like
We
that.
could be wrong. We could be wrong, but we're done with
Yeah,
the spoilers, so I'll
I
take
think
that
that's
down.
the point. That's like the point of the movie, though, is what's going on here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good one. Where would you rank it, like, in the Carpenters, just roughly?
Ooh. Um, what's he got? Like 18 movies or something?
Yeah,
Um, gosh, I think probably middle of the road. It's not
mhm,
it's not super low. It's like it was Village of the Damned, and then this that came out was like 94, 95. Or was maybe it was the opposite actually. Um, but I think, yeah, middle of the road.
yeah,
I like everything, man. I like pretty much everything he's done. I haven't seen The Ward still. Still gotta check that out. But it's the only thing I haven't seen. He's got a new series coming out, which is
yeah, I heard
crazy.
about that.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think probably right in there. I don't know. I love like his '90s stuff. Like people don't like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, but I really like that movie.
you know what it is? The more movies that you make that become classics, it's harder to judge the ones that are not considered classics. Like,
Yeah.
you have ones that become, like, cult classics, like, I think They Live is considered a cult classic, but it's not a classic. A classic would
Yeah.
be like a Halloween or, something like that. So, I
Mhm.
think if you don't fit into one of those 2, categories, then it's kinda like, it's not blah, blah, blah. So, I think that's how
Yeah.
people end up splitting it up. Uh, let's go through these other questions and land this plane here. All
All
right.
right.
So number 3, name a horror movie that everybody loves, you can't stand.
I don't know. Yeah, I am so
I love
unprepared.
everything.
I know I do like a lot of stuff. I'm not a big fan of The Conjuring, and I really hated The Conjuring 2. Didn't like that movie at all, and I didn't see the third one because of that.
Mhm.
Um,
What are there,
yeah,
like
no, everybody
7
loves
or
The
8 of
Conjuring.
those films by now?
Yeah, there's a bunch of those, right?
Yeah. I have to
Yeah,
admit, I have no interest in them. It's not like I haven't seen it, it's a blind spot. I just have, like, little I think I seen the first one. Yeah, I saw the first
yeah,
one, but I have, like, little interest in them.
yeah. It's not really. It's just. I guess it's just not. It's such a powerhouse, man. People love the first one. It was like a phenomenon, and I
Yep.
saw it, and I was like, no, I don't like it. I hate Midsummer, but I know other people hate that movie as well. I just despise
You
that
like The
movie so
Wicker Man,
much.
though.
I do like The Wicker Man. I didn't see the Nick Cage one, but I want to.
Yeah,
People
stick with the original.
yeah, that's a totally different thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That Wicker Man steelbook that's coming out though, I do want to get that.
me too. That
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 looks
looks beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yes, agreed.
Alright, so here's a new question for you. Name a horror movie that needs more love.
I'm gonna go with I Madman. Honestly, I think everybody should go out and watch I Madman. That's I'm gonna cheat.
I agree, I agree. I think that's a good one.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'll keep beating my drum that unless something has a recent physical media release or it's, like, super uber popular, people don't collectors, people who are in the physical media space really don't know about it, and my example is always Wesley Snipes. He had an action career, and not a lot of people know about it besides Demolition Man, but in this case, I
yeah,
think if we got a release of this movie, more people would talk about it for sure, for sure. That's a good one. That's a good one.
yes. Thank you.
And then finally, and you've answered this before, so feel free to answer it the same way or maybe add somebody else. Who would you like to see me have a conversation with on this channel?
Oh man. I do have a channel that I love, and she talks about horror a lot, and it's called X Teen Featurette.
X Team. Why does that sound like a super comic book hero kind of thing? X Team featurette?
X Teen, like Christine X Teen.
Oh, Christine X Team. Got it.
Yes, X Teen. She talks about Arrow titles all the time. Kino. She's obsessed with like all that stuff,
Yeah,
and she's a friend of mine, and she's fantastic. So check out her channel. Anybody
definitely
out there who
will.
she's
Definitely
not
will.
that active right now because she's been busy, but she's awesome.
I will definitely
Definitely
do that.
one of my faves.
Oh, and we'll make sure to run this video so she could hear you say that too.
Okay. I
But
don't think she knows what I look like, but maybe.
she sees you in the chat. She knows who you are,
Yeah, yeah,
face or no face.
exactly. Yeah.
But as always, my man, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this. Always fun.
Dude, thanks for
Always
having
fun
me
to
back
chat.
again,
Yeah, man.
especially during spooky season. I've loved this, and thanks for you watched all the movies. You watched I'm Madman.
I
I
I
can't believe
I
it.
tracked it down. I had to track it down, but I tracked it down, and it
Thank
was a
you,
good
man.
watch too. You didn't steer me wrong, so I'll give you
I'm so
credit for that.
glad. So glad you liked it,
Yeah, man. So,
dude.
thank you again for joining us, and as I always say, go watch a movie.
Good night.